Good evening, everyone. It's another lovely Monday, the beginning of another week, and so it's truly a great opportunity to be here today. I thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in, taking the time to be a part of leadership conversations. Again, it's a time where we sit and we discuss different leadership topics. We discuss some of the hardships and benefits of being a leader, and so it's truly a privilege to be able to have these conversations with you all on a weekly basis. I thank you so much for tuning in. It's another Monday. It's a little dreary outside because of the rain, but it's still an opportunity to be appreciative of having life. I truly am grateful for being alive today and being here to speak with everyone this evening. And so I want to thank everyone for their feedback. Last week we were talking about on the topic of trust, and so wanted to continue to talk about different topics on leadership. First of all, I can't believe that we're already almost halfway through July. We're 2 weeks away from August, and we're jumping in. This year has been going by so quickly, but we're just taking it one day at a time, and we're going about doing things the best way that we can. And so, want to ask everyone that's tuning in, feel free to share this broadcast with someone that you know, or another leader who is in another leader who needs to hear the things that we're talking about, because ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to help leaders come to the realization and recognition of what it means to be a leader and why leadership is important. And so, give me 1 second. And so we're talking about leadership and why leadership is important, and there are different challenges, different issues that come along with being a leader. And sometimes we don't really take the time to really think about what it means to carry out this role we call leadership. Thank you. Good evening. This is Susan. Thanks for tuning in. And so, give me 1 second. It seems like I don't have the Instagram live, but how's everyone doing this evening? I hope everyone is doing well. 1 second. Yeah, so I hope everyone's doing well. I apologize for the delay. It seems like I'm not live currently on Instagram, so just trying to fix that currently. So, again, talking about leadership and talking about different topics, and I want to talk about something that was interesting to me today, a topic that really kind of hit home today, and I wanted to kind of take some time to talk about it. But before we do that, I want to let you know that we have visionary t-shirts currently available. For those of you that are interested, it's I'm doing a 15% discount. So when you put your order in, you get 15%. All you have to do is use the promo code Visionary. And so I'm going to be copying the link in the description. So I want you to get your Visionary t-shirt. It's the summertime, and then now is the time as leaders for us to really start to wear our leadership gear and let people know that we are leaders and that we are capable of carrying out vision. So again, 15% discount is available. If you put your order in today, when you're going to checkout, you put the promo code Visionary, you get a 15% discount on all t-shirts and all products. So with that being said, I want to talk about today on the topic or on the subject of the importance of showing up. Why showing up is important. Good evening, Pastor Ash. Thanks for tuning in. Importance of showing up and why showing up is so important. Showing up is important, right? There's a quote that says that 80% of success is showing up. And I really had to think about it today in preparing for our conversation to talk about one of the challenges that come along with being a leader. And one of the things that we have to constantly recognize is that as leaders, there's an expectation for us to show up. There's an expectation that we have to show up as leaders. We have to show up, have to show up in order to accomplish certain dreams, certain visions, and accomplish what we need to do. And so it really is important to recognize and understand that when we're talking about showing up, why is it important? It's important because so many people have an expectation. There's an expectation that comes with leadership. And a lot of times we don't recognize that there are expectations that come along with showing up, that especially when you're in the role of a leader, people are expecting you to show up. People are expecting you to be present. People are expecting you to be there, to be available. God bless you, Sister Christine. Thanks for tuning in. And a lot of times we don't focus on the fact or recognize or acknowledge the importance of showing up. It's so important that we show up as leaders. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to leadership, leaders are held to a higher standard than most people. When you're in a leadership role, people are expecting you to show up. They're expecting you to show up and be available, to be present. And when we don't show up, we cause a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of damage, but we create room for disappointment. We create room for failure. We create room for error. And so I wanted to talk about the importance of showing up today, because as leaders, we have to make sure that we show up in whatever we're doing, right? If we're talking about building a vision, we're talking about leading an organization, leading a group of people, being influencers, we have to show up and make ourselves available, right? Another quote that we always hear is that the best ability is availability. Why? Because a lot of times when you show up, even if you're not sure how to do what you need to do, just showing up makes a world of a difference. And so when I think about showing up, right, especially when it comes to leadership, a lot of times it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge to a challenging task to take on, because people are, like I said before, you're dealing with expectations. But if you're going to be a visionary, we have to recognize and acknowledge the fact that we have to be the engine. We have to be the driver of the vision. And so that means showing up for the people that you're working with. It means showing up to build the vision. It means showing up to events, showing up to meetings, right? And a lot of times it's not an easy thing, because sometimes you just want to be a person, right? You just want to have a moment. You just want to relax. You just want to have a time where you take to yourself. And those are all important. It's important to make sure that you find time for yourself. It's important that you make time to recover mentally, to recover physically, to recover spiritually, to recover even emotionally, right? It's important that you take those times. But more often than not, we have to make ourselves available for the people that we're leading. We have to make ourselves available for the vision that we're building. And so when we talk about showing up, right? And I want to throw this question out to each and every person that's on live today. And when you think about showing up, what are some things that come to mind? What are some ideas that come to mind? What does it mean to you as a leader to show up? What does it mean as a leader to be present? What does it mean for you? How does showing up look like for you? And I want everyone to take a moment. You can put your answer in the chat, put it in the discussion. I want us to kind of have a little bit of a group discussion to talk about it, because a lot of times it shows up and it's different for every person. Let me say that. Showing up means something different for everybody else. So thanks for tuning in, Danny. He says support is important. Is important for showing up. That's 100%. Anybody else? Feel free to put it in the chat. What does showing up mean for you? What are some of the expectations or the ideas that you think about when it comes to showing up? Because ultimately, we really don't understand the value and the importance of it, right? Pastor Asha, she says, making myself available to others, using my gifts to help others be strengthened. Absolutely, that's another key factor of showing up, making yourself available, right? We all have to make ourselves available so that we can have an impact. You can never have an impact if you're not there. But another one, thank you so much, Danny. Encouragement. All of these things are so important and so key when it comes to building, showing up. And so when you talk about showing up, it really ultimately is demonstrating a willingness to be available. It's a willingness to make yourself available. It's a willingness to be present. Thank you, Sister Christine. She says, showing how to take action in a situation. So being an example, that's a perfect point. You're being an example. You have to be the example that you want people to follow, right? You have to be able to show people how to manage and how to handle certain situations. And it's so important, right? Because when we're talking about being available, being present, there's so many leaders that are in place that don't properly understand how that works, right? And sometimes you may be there in physically, right? You may be there physically, but mentally you're not there. Emotionally, you're not there. And I've seen so many times where leaders have been so detached from the people that they're working with, from the team that they're leading. And what I've come to realize, even from my own experience, is that when a leader operates in that manner where they're detached, they lose the support of their team. So I remember my previous job working in a place where the managers were so detached from the rest of the staff that when it came time to having team meetings, no one was interested. When it came time to talk about goals of the organization, no one was interested, because it was just it became a situation where it became us against them. And so it was the employees versus the managers, and it created such tension and such division amongst the whole team that it affected the performance and the productivity of the organization. And it's funny too, because even in seeing someone who was an employee with us move up into the manager position, how their perspective of the rest of the team changed, and how the employees' perspective of them changed. And all of these things create this kind of toxic atmosphere that it becomes us against them when you find that as a leader you're detached, or leaders are detached from the rest of the team. And so showing up is so important. It's important because it helps. It shows that you care. It shows that you're willing to work. It shows that you're willing to build the vision, and it shows that you're willing to serve. And as leaders, we cannot run away from the mindset or the idea of serving. It is your job as a leader not to just give orders and give commands and pass forward emails and pass things down the chain, but are you connected? Are you willing to serve? Are you willing to help the rest of the team? Right? I do not like the mindset, and I do not subscribe to the idea or the belief that you have to be separated from the people that you're leading. I believe that the higher you become, the greater the position that you're in, is the more connected and the more involved that you need to be with the people that you're leading. And so when you think about showing up, right? Showing up affects several things. It affects opportunities, right? Because when you show up, you don't know what opportunities will come from your consistency in being available, your consistency in showing up, and your display of your commitment and dedication, right? It boosts opportunities. It breaks limitations. Because one thing that I've come to realize is that as leaders or as individuals, right, it's not hard. Certain skills, most skills can be learned, right? There's no skills out there that you're just born with. There may be some things that you may be naturally gifted in, but for the most part, skills are something that you can develop. A job is something that you can learn, but all it requires is for you to show up. Right? Think about the place where you work, right? The first couple of days, couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months that you started on the job, you may have been afraid that you didn't know how to do the job. You may have felt this fear that you weren't going to be able to get the job done or do the job effectively. But the more you showed up, the more that you were there, the more you began to learn, and the easier the job became. And so a lot of times we start something new. And there are limitations that we put on ourselves. But the more you show up is the more that you learn what you're capable of. And so to piggyback off of that, it showing up, it fuels growth. It fuels growth, right? We're all in the process, and we're all in the place in our lives where we're growing. One thing that I always preach and I always say is that growth is important when it comes to leadership. We as leaders, we as people, we as human beings, we are always growing. From the day that we are born until the day that we die, we're growing, right? And it's so fascinating because even on a cellular level, right? On a cellular level, our cells are always reproducing. It's always growing. We're always It fuels our muscle cells, it fuels our tissues, our organs, and those things are consistently growing on a continuous basis. So from the moment that you're born, you're growing. And what I've come to realize is that when you show up, it gives a greater opportunity for growth. It gives greater room for growth. It creates learning experiences that you can grow from, and whether the learning experience is good or bad, right? There are certain experiences that you experience that's not the greatest of experience. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it taught you so much. And the truth be told is that a lot of the times, majority of the times, we learn the most from the situations that have impacted us negatively. The greatest growth usually comes in the times where we experience hurt, disappointment, we experience pain, we experience brokenheartedness. It is usually in those experiences, the times where we experience the most resistance, that creates the maximum amount of growth. Right? They tell you when you're working out, when you go to the gym and you're working out, that the greater the resistance that you have on the weights is the more muscle damage, which produces the most growth. Right? Muscles grow from being torn, from being stressed, from being strained. And that's how you build muscle. You go through these experiences where you experience resistance, you experience tearing, you experience breaking, and then you have a moment where you heal and you grow to be stronger than ever. And so we got to think about the importance of learning experiences and the importance of growth, right? It's so important because even our bodies are conditioned to grow from stress. It's conditioned to grow from strain. Our mental capacity increases with stress and strain, right? And with resistance. How do we know that? When you take exams, right? You go to school. One of the most stressful things that you have to experience in school is taking exams, taking midterm exams, taking final exams. But it's those stressful moments of taking those tests that allow you to learn the most information. Whether you're cramming the night before or you're slowly studying as you go along, right? Ultimately, you feel like you're studying to learn for a test, but ultimately it becomes information that becomes a part of you. And so showing up creates those experiences that helps us to learn and helps us to grow. Another thing about showing up helps to increase productivity. Because when the people that you're leading see that you make yourself available, they see how hard you work, how dedicated you are, it can inspire them to be more committed. It can inspire them to be more dedicated. It gives them the example, as our sister shared earlier. It provides the example so that they can be able to see how to handle situations. And so how many of us, we want people to follow us, but we don't show up on a consistent basis? How many of us, we want people to do what we say, but they don't see us doing what we say, right? We want people to do things a certain way. You want them to do their job. You want them to be a part of the organization and do their job in the organization, but they don't see you doing it. It requires us showing up. Because when you show up, it increases productivity. It fuels motivation. It fuels impact. It fuels inspiration. One of my favorite players that I always talk about, Kobe Bryant, right? Kobe Bryant, every player that played with him, everyone that has played with him has a story. And their story is always about the fact that Kobe Bryant was always in the gym, working out. He was always giving 110% into his craft. And it fueled them. It inspired them. I recently was watching a video where Allen Iverson was being interviewed. And he was talking about the fact that when he played against Kobe and the Lakers, he said that Kobe picked him up from the airport, took him to dinner, and then he said to Kobe, "What you about to do? Because I'm going to the club." And Kobe Bryant said, I'm going to the gym. And so while he was in the club and Kobe was in the gym and building on his craft, working on his craft, it now changed Iverson's perspective on what he should be doing. Majority of the players, they always refer to Mamba mentality because they watched his example. They watched how he worked. They watched how intense how focused he was, how committed he was, how he showed up to do his job, how he showed up for the thing that he loved. A lot of times we tend to only want to show up for the good, right? When things become difficult and become stressful and becomes too much pressure, we kind of tend to shy away from that. But we only want to show up for good. But the true impactful people, the true impactful leaders are always committed. They always show up, even when things are rough and when things are hard, because it becomes not just a challenge, but an opportunity for them to grow. It becomes an opportunity for them to produce. It becomes an opportunity for them to have an impact. And so showing up on a consistent basis, whether things are good or whether things are bad, will always increase our impact. Now, my question to you is, what are some of the factors that causes us to not want to show up? What are some of the things that hold us back from being present? And it's so important that we talk about this as leaders, because it's such a challenging thing. Because truth of the matter is, we don't always feel like showing up. We don't always feel like making ourselves available. We don't always feel like answering the calls. We don't always feel like responding to the emails. We don't always feel like showing up to work, right? There are times when we just want to not do anything. We just want to lay on the couch and veg. We just want to watch Netflix. We just want to kick our feet up and just do absolutely nothing. What are some of the things that you have experienced that or you have seen in your leadership experience as to what causes people not to show up? Because showing up is so important, but it's also so challenging. And that's why I want to tackle this topic today, because in my own experience, I've come to realize that it's something that it's easy at times, but a lot of times it's difficult. It's extremely difficult. And I truly believe that if we can understand this concept, if we can wrap our minds around it, we can wrap our behaviors around understanding it, if we can shape ourselves to become more disciplined, that quote that I mentioned earlier about 80% of success is showing up. We can experience that 80% of success, that we're of 80% of what we're trying to succeed in. But if it's something that's a majority of success, then of course it's going to be one of the most challenging things to do. And a lot of times we get caught up in our feelings, we get caught up in our own personal matters, we get caught up in our own heads, in our own thoughts, and it causes us to unintentionally be absent. And why do I say unintentionally? Because if you talk to any person, 99% of the times they want to be present. They want to show up. They want to make themselves available. But there's always something. There's something that gets in the way. And I truly believe that the reason why we have a lot of the issues that we have in our lives is because of the fact that we allow things to dissuade us from showing up, right? Because what happens when you don't show up? Like I said, it affects your productivity. It affects your relationships. Because truth of the matter is, one of the main causes of broken relationships, broken friendships, broken partnerships, right, is the fact that there was an expectation of showing up and someone didn't show up. And it creates room for disappointment. It creates room for failure. It creates room for disengagement. It creates room for disinterest. It creates room for all of these negative things to take place. And a lot of the issues that we have can be avoided when we choose to show up. Because another thing, it leaves room for assumptions when you don't show up, right? It leaves room for assumptions, and usually the assumptions that are made are not generally good. Usually the assumptions that are made are generally bad. We as people, we have a bad tendency to think the worst of people. And so a lot of times when we don't show up, people start to think the worst of us. We start to think the worst of people, right? We start to assume that they just don't want to be there, right? We just assume that they don't care about what we're doing. They don't care about a relationship. They don't care about our feelings. But really, the truth of the matter is that none of that is the reason. But if we would properly communicate, or if we would actually show up, we would be able to break those negative assumptions. So back to my question. What are some of the things that causes us to not show up? What are the things that hold us back? I'll throw out a few things, and feel free to throw any of your ideas in the chat, and I'll definitely highlight them. But some things that I've come to the realization is that when you don't show up, it usually is caused by some kind of fear, right? How many opportunities have we missed because we were afraid that we were going to fail? And because we were afraid that we were going to fail, we didn't show up and we lost out on an opportunity. So many times that has been the case where we've missed opportunities, where we've missed seasons, where we missed blessings, where we missed open doors. We missed all of these things. Why? Because of the fact that we allowed fear to cripple us. We allowed fear to keep us from showing up. We allowed doubt to keep us from showing up. Can I really do this? Is this really going to work out? Is this really going to be in my benefit? I really don't know. And so we allow the doubt, we allow the fear. Those things, fear and doubt, we allow those things to keep us from showing up, and then it causes us to miss opportunities. It causes us to miss out on building healthy relationships. We never want to be, as leaders, in a position where, and granted, I want to put this little disclaimer, right? We're never going to please everybody. It's not our job as leaders to please everybody, right? But even though it's not our job to please everybody, it's still important that we try our best to show up for everybody. I hope that makes sense, because you're never going to completely please everyone. You're never going to completely satisfy everyone, but the least you can do is try to show up for everyone. Because like I said before when I first started, is that a lot of times as leaders, we have to deal with expectations that haven't been communicated. Because people will have expectations of you and expect you to show up, but they won't communicate that they expect you to show up. They don't communicate how important it is to them that you show up. And so we as leaders, we don't, not to say that we have to live up to these uncommunicated expectations, but we do have to try our best to be available, to be examples, to be communicative, to show up, to be present in the moment. So what I'm saying, fear, doubt, those are two things that hold us back from showing up. Another thing that keeps us from showing up, truth of the matter is, there are times when you're just tired, where you're just genuinely exhausted, and because you're exhausted or because you're tired, it's hard to be available. It's hard to be present because you just mentally, emotionally, you're just not all there. That is a lot of times the case, right? Another thing that a lot of leaders struggle with is the idea of selfishness. There's some leaders who are just selfish. That's why they don't show up. They don't show up because the first thing that they want to know is, how is this going to benefit me? And as leaders, we have to be servants first. We have to learn to serve. And so when you become serving a servant, you become less self-serving. And too many leaders, too many managers fail at what they're doing, fail at their job because they are always focused on them. So these are some of the things the challenges that come with, that keep us back from showing up. But what I want us to understand is that showing up is important, and there are certain things that we have to do as leaders that to prevent issues. A lot of issues can be avoided by two things: being present and being communicative. And I'm really learning in my own leadership journey is that even though people may have expectations, even though you have a responsibility as a leader to show up, you have a responsibility to be present, you have to really be excellent in communication. You have to be overly communicative. Because when you don't show up and you don't communicate, it leaves such a room for error. It leaves such a room for brokenness. It leaves such a room for issues and conflict. And we could really avoid a lot of the conflicts that we have in our lives if we would do these two things: show up and communicate. As leaders, you have to be able to communicate that, hey, even if I'm not available, then I'm going to communicate that I'm not available, but let's schedule another time. I was reading a story today about a manager who was having difficulties with their team, right? They were having difficulties with their team and their team's productivity. And one of the people they were managing wanted to have a conversation with them about a personal matter, right? Wanted to have a conversation about the personal matter, but the manager told the individual that I'm not available right now to talk. And that was it. Just, I can't talk right now because I have so much things going on. But it wasn't until that manager went to the individual and said, I'm sorry that I brushed you off. Do you have time today to talk? And when she finally talked, she learned that the team member was having issues with her son's health. And because of her son's health issues, it was affecting her productivity. And it took the manager listening, being available, being present, hearing her situation, and helping her to adjust her schedule that created a whole turnaround in her level of productivity. And so a lot of the conflicts, a lot of the issues, a lot of the stresses, a lot of the problems that we deal with is because of the fact that we're not making ourselves available, because of the fact that we're not communicating. And so what am I saying? As leaders, the best thing that we can do is make ourselves available. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the strongest. You don't have to be the wisest. You don't have to be the highest paid. But people will respond to you favorably. They will respect you more when you show up and make yourself available. You're a leader and you're wondering why your team isn't producing, why your organization isn't producing, why your ministry isn't producing. The first thing you got to do is check yourself. Am I making myself available? Am I showing up? And not just showing up physically, but when I'm there, am I present? Am I there with the team? Am I listening keenly to what others are saying to me? Am I putting my effort into helping build this? Right? And like I said, it's not an easy thing. It's a challenging thing. But it's something that creates such a great impact. We want to be more impactful. We want to produce more. We want to build momentum. We want to affect change. It starts with first showing up. And when you show up and you make yourself available, then you put yourself in a position to win. You put yourself in a position to advance. You put yourself in a position to create greater result. But when we don't show up, or we show up sometimes, then we leave too much room for conflict and for issues. And so there's never a consistency. There's never a momentum. There's never anything that's built up for us to be able to move past where we are. And I'm learning that because when you're leading others, people are looking up to you even when you don't realize it. People are expecting you to be present even when you don't realize it. And the unfortunate thing is sometimes it's at an inconvenience to yourself. And that's one of the biggest challenges of leadership, is that a lot of times people are expecting you to show up or need you to show up, sometimes in the most inconvenient of times. And that's where we have to make that decision that as leaders, we gotta remember that we're here to serve, we're here to help, we're here to build, and the way we can grow and we can build is by building others. And so, with that being said, I want us to understand that there is an importance that comes along with showing up. Yes, you may not feel like you're going to do the best job. Yes, you may feel like you're not good enough. Yes, you may feel like you're not the right person for the job. But just show up and see what happens. That's all you can do. Show up and see what happens, because you never know what's going to happen. Because I've talked to so many people and I've seen so many examples where they were afraid of doing something. They were afraid to show up to an event, to speak at an event. They were afraid to take on a job role. But once they took on it, they recognized how great of an impact that it was. And they ultimately leave feeling better because of the impact that it had. I remember being asked to minister somewhere, right? Not feeling like I was able or capable of ministering, not feeling like I was even in the right headspace to preach, right? And to minister. And I decided, listen, I'm here. I'm nervous. I'm afraid. I don't feel like I'm good enough, but I'm going to minister this because I'm going to show up and I'm going to be present. I'm going to minister to us, and whatever happens, happens. And come to realize that after speaking and after sharing, that so many people came to me afterwards and talked about how that word was speaking to their current situation or speaking to what they were dealing with in the moment. And it really taught me that even though I may not feel good, or I may not feel the best, or I may not feel like I can do it, just by me showing up, I didn't realize the effect that it could have on those that heard me. And so you don't know whose life you're going to affect. You don't know who you're going to impact. You don't know who needs you to show up. But that's how we are able as leaders to really, truly do great things. Because whether it's one person, whether it's two people, whether it's 5 people, whether it's 10 people, whether it's 1,000 people, you don't know who needs you to be present in the moment. You don't know what they're going through, what they're experiencing, what answer they need, what solution they need. And just by you showing up, just by you being present, just by you being available, it creates such a ripple effect. And I'm learning, and I'm sharing this with you all, because I'm learning that the greatest impact usually starts, the greatest waves usually start with one ripple. And so we're looking for the great things to happen. But if you would just create a ripple, you don't know how much that ripple will eventually turn into a wave. But we have to get out of that mindset of instant gratification, that I have to see something great and it has to affect everybody around me in that moment, so that I can feel good about myself. But as leaders and as servants, as we're called to serve and to build, it's just that one pebble in the water, that one splash that will eventually, over time, build a wave that will have such a greater impact. But it requires us to show up. Too many times we don't want to show up because the last time we showed up, we didn't see the effects of what we said or what we did. We didn't see the impact in the moment. But then you see a week, 2 weeks, a month later, a year later, someone comes and says, "Hey, I heard you speak about this. I heard you teach about this. You came to this event and it had such an impact on my life that you don't even really recognize." It's about those things, because those are the things that last. Yes, you could be great, and a lot of us, a lot of people, they want to be able to do things like preach and wave their hands and the whole crowd falls out, right? That's what a lot of people are looking for. They want to give a speech. They want to say something, and they want it to be such an awe creating response, right? They want to create an awe factor moment. And those things are very far and few in between, right? Those things, those huge impacts, those huge experiences, those are the things that will happen on a rare occasion. But if you can affect one person, they can go and affect 10 people. They can go and affect 100 people. They can go affect 1,000 people. Now you have 1,000 people that have been impacted by the fact that you showed up in that moment. You may not be the person that directly influences them, but you indirectly influence them because you influence the person that influenced them. And we as leaders, we have to kind of shift our mindset. We kind of shift our motivations. We got to shift our expectations. That it's not just we're not doing this to draw a multitude of people, to draw a huge crowd. But if I can just affect the one, if I can affect that one person, if I can influence that one person, if I can inspire that one person, then they can go and multiply. We look at the ministry of Jesus. We talk about him all the time, right? All he did was influence the 12. He influenced the 12, and that 12 created a whole religion, and that has had impact even now, thousands of years later. Millions of people are followers of Christ. It usually is the impact and the influence of a few that ultimately impacts the majority. And so it first starts with us showing up, being present, being there, being available, being having a willingness to try, having a willingness to help, having a willingness to do the work. Because usually when you show up, everything else falls in line. The experience falls in line, the skills start to build, the influence starts to build, the relationship starts to build, the network starts to build. Think about who you are as a leader today, right? When you really think about it, it started off with you making one decision, showing up one time that ultimately catapulted you or slowly treaded you, brought you to the place where you are now. It was the decision or it was the influence of one person. One thing that helped me to really pursue this whole leadership journey was hearing one person speak. I went to one leadership conference for one weekend in my junior year of college, and that ultimately shifted my whole trajectory. It was one decision to show up to this conference that ultimately shaped my belief system, that shaped my ideology, that shaped even what I wanted to do. Because I went to college, I told everybody I wanted to go to college for music production. I wanted to be the gospel version of Pharrell. I wanted to be the gospel version of Diddy. And I wanted to produce music. And I still had that passion. Still have that drive. But after that one experience, showing up to that one event, it ultimately helped me to recognize that this was my true passion. I still love music. Music is still my passion. Let's not forget that. That's a part of me. Music is a part of my life. Music is my life. But coming to the realization of what my true purpose was, to inspire leaders, to help leaders to grow, it started off with showing up to one thing. And so we can't despise or look down on the importance of showing up one time. When you show up that one time, you don't know where it's going to take you. You don't know what doors is going to take you on, what opportunities are going to become available, what people you get connected to. And we have to recognize the importance of that, because when you show up, it is an opportunity. And sometimes the opportunity that you're looking for is sometimes showing up opens up the opportunity of the opportunity that you've been waiting for. And I wanted to really discuss that today, because I really truly believe that as leaders, we have to make sure that we show up for others. We have to make sure that we show up for our team, show up for our organization, show up for our vision. Even when you don't feel like it, even when you're tired, even when it feels like an inconvenience, even when it feels like you can't do it. When you show up, it will have such a great impact. And it starts with us accepting that. We got to learn to manage the expectations. People are expecting you to show up. People need you to show up. People are waiting for you to show up, even if they don't realize that they're waiting for you. But when you show up, you don't know whose life you're going to touch that's going to eventually come back full circle to help you. And so as leaders, as servants, as people who are called to make an impact in the world, it starts with us showing up. 80% of success is showing up. The best ability is availability. And so when you show up, when you make yourself available, you don't know the impact that it's going to have and how it'll affect the trajectory of your life. And so I just wanted to leave you with that today. It was something that was truly on my heart, and something that I experienced the effects of it even up until today. And so even in the experience that I had, it really showed me the importance. It really showed me the importance, because some people, they're waiting for you to show up. And when you show up, you don't know how happy it makes them. You don't know how much they really needed you to show up when you did. And too many times we miss those opportunities. And so I encourage you this week, do your best to be present. Do your best to show up. Do your best to make yourself available, because you don't know how it's going to affect the world that you live in. You don't know how that's going to affect your sphere of influence. And so I encourage you not to miss any opportunities, not to miss anything that's going to miss open doors that are available for you. All it takes is for us to show up. Just show up, just be present, just be available, and watch the impact that it'll have on others, and the impact that it'll have on your own life. And so I want to leave you with that. I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. I appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this conversation. It's something that's very near and dear to me. It's important to me. And I really believe that we can be greater leaders tomorrow than we are today. It's all about working on ourselves, working on our abilities, working on our ideas and our vision and our purpose, and we can really truly make an impact. So thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said earlier, for those of you that missed it, our vision t-shirts, our visionary t-shirts are available. I pinned the link in the Facebook chat. And so if you click the link and you type in the promo code visionary, you get 15% off of 15% discount off of your order. So click the link, pick your size, pick your color. We got them in black, we got them in red, we got them in blue. We have all different colors available. It's the summertime. It's time to show who we are as leaders and the impact that we want to make as leaders, to let the world know that we're visionaries, that we're game changers. And so we got to look the part. So click the link that I pinned in the chat. Type in the promo code when you check out. Visionary gets you 15%. And let's show the world how we are as visionaries. Again, I thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. I appreciate all of your time. I appreciate you joining. I appreciate your feedback, your comments. And so I pray that you will have a blessed week. I pray that this week will be a week of open doors and a week of opportunities, that God will give you favor with him and with man, that the things that have been closed up, the doors that have been closed, that they will open up for you. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I hope to see you again next week, God willing. So God bless and take care, everyone.